the Facebook site, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. I want to welcome everybody. Today is September 18th, 2019. It is 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, all time zones in between, all time zones around the world. We are bringing you every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So please set your calendars. Join us. Please join Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us group. We are talking about this tonight. We're talking about a very interesting one, Nicola and the death of her friend and her son. This is really talking about Nicola and actually the son of her friend who died. This is a very interesting, not a near-death experience, but a other death experience. And this is encountered in my book, What Really Happens During Near-Death Experiences According to Spiritism. I believe Spiritism gives us so much information. And if you want to learn about Spiritism, go and join my Facebook site, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Go to the file section. I have lots of books. In fact, I actually have my book you can get on Kindle for, I think it's $1.99 or 99 cents. It's in PDF, so you can download it free. It's in PDF. It's Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. So we are talking about Nicola and the death of her friend and her son. But first, let me just say, this is all brought to you by Allan Kardec. So if you're interested in the things I am saying, go read Allan Kardec, The Spirits book. It's on PDF. Again, you can download that. Just go in DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use, write down Allan Kardec space PDF, and you will find his books. And to me, they were a revelation. Again, as you'd want to join my Facebook site, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. And you can always go to my blog, NW Spiritism. And you can email me, contact me. I'd love to. I have people emailing me all the time now, and it's wonderful. I love to answer questions. So let's get right to it. This is an other death experience. This is Nicola and the son of her friend. And this is a most unusual story of a friend of a woman who was pregnant. She had a baby boy, and the recollections of the boy just before his birth. The child, years later, remembers where he was as his mother was in labor and the specific events the friends experienced as she went to help the boy's mother at the hospital. Now, this account is located on the nderf.org site, which has thousands of NDEs from all over the world, and Nicola's individual story is located there. Now, the actions in this story are a testament to the doctrine of Spiritism, and I find this all over. I find more and more near-death experiences, things I read on the nderf.org site, plus other ones that people just write to me. They want understanding. They ask me questions. Everything I've seen so far just tells me Spiritism has the answer why we have near-death experiences. I'll tell you the short answer right there is a near-death experience is like you're in middle school and you're called out by the vice principal saying, I think you need to do better. That's, if you want a summary of it, that's what it is. And they'll help convince you to do better if you want to come back to earth and learn more. It's all, after all, why we're here, to be better from your near-death experiences. So I just want to emphasize, without the knowledge presented to us by Allan Kardec and about the organization and the processes of the spirit realm, this story would be unexplainable. By reading and understand the Spirits book, which tells us we are immortal souls traveling through multiple lives in a journey of improvement to become pure spirits, we are able to greet the events in this story with a comprehension based on the love given to us by our spirit mentors and the Supreme Intelligence, God. Now, I'll let Nicola introduce her story. This is a fantastic story. She says, my friend and I met as school teachers at the same school several years ago. She was pregnant when we met, and she chose me to be present at the birth of her child because she was a single mother and afraid of being alone. It was a tremendous honor to be invited into the delivery room because even though I have children of my own, it was a fascinating opportunity to see a birth without experiencing the pain myself. My friend delivered a baby boy named Michael, and it was an incredible experience. I joked to her that I saw her son before she did. I saw his head poking out before he was born, and she didn't have a mirror to see for herself. Now, this is a perfectly normal occurrence when a friend has a baby. Nothing out of the ordinary. Unfortunately, Nicola's friend died a few months after the birth of her son. The boy was cared for by his grandparents. The grandparents on the son's mother's side lived in the same town and within the school boundaries where Nicola teaches. Nicola and her friend were both new school teachers working at the same school, and Nicola was pleased to see her old friend's son, Michael, in her class, although she never spoke of her friendship with his deceased mother, for fear it may show favoritism over the rest of the class. Nicola also did not have a relationship with Michael's grandparents, and they weren't at the hospital during Michael's birth. Now, this is where the extraordinary occurrence comes forth, and it's all explained by Spiritism. Michael was in Nicola's class when he was 9.5 years old for a poetry assignment. Nicola asked her class to write about their earliest memories. As Nicola states, most of the children would write about kindergarten or a favorite childhood toy when they were toddlers. Then Michael raised his hand. I'll let her tell the story. Michael put up his hand and said that he remembers watching everyone from up in the sky and being in his mother's belly before he was born. He said that when he was waiting to be born, he was invisible, and he was in my gray car with me on the way to the hospital while I, meaning Nicola, to the song Winter, Spring, Summer, or Fall. This is what he called the song. He likely doesn't know the real name and probably hasn't heard it since, but it was You've Got a Friend by James Taylor. I used to have the cassette tape in that car. This is bizarre because I did drive a gray car at the time, and I haven't had one for the past 7 years, 2 years after he was born. I can't imagine he even knows that song from today's radio music. My heart started to beat like crazy. How in the heck would he know that? Even his grandparents wouldn't know that, and his mom wouldn't have known that before she died. Even if somehow she did, he was only 3 months old when she passed. How would she tell him? I certainly never told her what song was in my car, on the way to the hospital, so I can't explain that. Now, we have heard numerous stories of people with NDEs who clinically died at the hospital, left their bodies, watched events unfold around their corpse. Recollections of the nurse frantically setting up equipment, reactions of friends in the waiting room, and other specific details which are unexplainable, except by the famous saying of the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. The improbable being the existence of another world, another dimension from which we came and shall return. This is how I found Spiritism. I tried to eliminate everything when I was told about certain events would happen in the future, and they did. Then I had to take what was the improbable, that there was a whole spirit world guiding our lives. So, there is another dimension, right? And we know that we're from that other dimension, including we have the ability to separate our immortal spirit from our physical manifestation and still retain our senses. Spirits do that all the time. For isn't this the greatest obstacle to overcome in our belief in the afterlife, right? One could easily believe that an orb of energy could escape our carcass and fly away to be reabsorbed in the universal intelligence. For this would still retain some sense of otherness, a mystery that many of us don't really want to discover, a deeply desired hope that when we die, all of our actions on earth are also left there. No guilt, no blame, no sense of failure, only love and forgiveness. That's really all we want, but it's not entirely true. There is no blame, there is love and forgiveness from the spirit world, but the guilt and the sense of failure all comes from us. And I can talk more about that in my books on Spiritism, which you can see in the links below. Now, to have the realization before us that indeed we are the same, with or without a dense body, is either a wondrous discovery or a horrible moment of truth, depending on your point of view. Remaining who we are entails bringing with us to the other side our complete, unadulterated set of memories. Each good, bad, or indifferent deed is stored for us to contemplate upon all eternity. There are a series of books, all psychographed by Francisco Chico C. Xavier and inspired by the spirit Andre Luis. He was a wealthy doctor in Rio de Janeiro who died sometime around the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th. He chronicled his death, his time spent wandering in limbo, his rescue by good spirits in the celestial city of No Solar, which means our home in Portuguese. No Solar is the name of his first book, which relates his recovery and realization of his place in the universe. He discovers that heaven isn't a place for idleness, but one of self-sacrificing work on behalf of other spirits. Spirits who are on earth in physical form and spirits lost on various levels of atonement. In subsequent books, Andre is a member of a team of spirits who travel to earth to assist us in our needs. Andre learns that we are compelled to be reborn to acquire valuable lessons, so we may pay for our wrongs in past lives. In the book, Workers of the Life Eternal, Andre goes further to detail the penalty of incorrect actions. This is what he says: we shall be compelled to do regenerative work both during incarnation and discarnation, both in our corporeal existence and in the death of our body, both in the present and in the future. No one will successfully reach the peak of life eternal without first having learned the balance to do so. And this is brought up even in my books. I have a series of 3 books, Heaven and Below, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, and How We Are Guided by Spirits. It's also backed up by all the Spiritists, not only Allan Kardec in his first book, the Spiritist book, as I said, Chico Xavier, Reverend G. Val Owen, Devaldo Franco. This is the central theme. Karma is real, right? The process of karma is actual process. What we did in our past life determines this life. What we do in this life determines our next life. We reincarnate. Our soul is immortal. This is again one of the central lessons that people come out of from NDEs. That and the fact that they have a blueprint, they have a project they must do, they have a learning plan. We all have a learning plan, but this NDE, or I should say, other death experience, shows even more. So, Henri Louis observed, after personally seeing the end of life experiences of multiple people, the passion to hold on to material objects, the regrets of wrongdoing, the terrible physical inflictions caused by alcoholism or drugs, the totality of the effect on the spirit as it withdraws from the body. While on the other hand, spirits who have led a life relatively free from such wrong actions achieve a calmer death, a faster withdrawal from their bodies. The spirits who did not resist temptation experience a much harder effort to let go. Even after full withdrawal of their spirits from their physical bodies, these types of people were confused and required care to fully recover their thought processes. Now, Henri Louis isn't the only one to present the salient facts about reincarnation to us. From Hinduism, Krishna in the Garuda Purana tells us everyone creates their own fate. Even life in the womb is affected by the karma from a previous life. And Buddha notifies us that our actions have reactions. When he speaks about rebirth, from a sound an echo returns. A body creates a shadow. So too will misery comes to him who does evil works. Now, this message has been consistent from the earliest times. The spirit world has delivered the certified letter. Make sure you get it. And it doesn't matter if we sign the return receipt or not. The process of payment and redemption is known to anyone who cares to discover it. Hence, the specter of not only living with our past, but paying for our past is a realization that many of us would rather postpone, if not rationalize completely away. Because which of us hasn't been regretful of past deeds? I know I have. I have plenty to pay for in my next life. Not a comforting thought before you go to bed. But what is comforting is that we are loved, warts and all. For every spirit knows they have been in the same shoes. All have been woefully inadequate during one life or another. Have comfort in the knowledge that the prize is worth the effort of living through our life and going through our trials. Life in the heavenly city is indeed joyous. Therefore, not only are we aware when we are parting from this world, but we are fully cognizant when we enter. Michael had the gift to remember his entry. For like all of us, Michael too is an immortal spirit. Excuse me. So Michael continues his remembrances. This is what Nicola writes that Michael said. Michael said that he remembers me stopping for gas and asking the attendant for directions to the hospital. True. He said he wanted me for his mommy because he liked my voice when I was speaking to the attendant. I did stop for gas and I was kind of lost going to a rural hospital, so I asked for directions. Then he said that he remembers that the parking lot was partially closed for construction, so I had to park on a corner and run to the hospital. By this point, my jaw was almost on the floor, and the whole class was staring at me. I never told the class or Michael that I was at his birth. The class must have thought this was one crazy story. So, what was going on? Well, Michael's spirit was free from his new body as his mother was going into labor. For some reason, his spirit rested, waiting for his birth, while his mother's best friend was there. Now, this is the proof of the life plan. Next, Michael told Nicola what he saw and wanted, even before he officially entered the world. This is what she says. Then Michael said the most incredible thing. He said that while his real mom in labor, he asked God if I could be his mom, since he knew that his real mom wouldn't survive very long, and he was afraid of being alone on earth. Apparently, he was told that he couldn't have me for his real mom, but everything would be okay and he would still get to be around me during his life. Now, imagine what's the thoughts racing through Nicola's mind. Irrefutable facts are disclosed on the day Nicola traveled to the hospital in the identified car, the stop at the gas station with the exact music playing. Then Michael relays that he knew that his mother was going to die in the near future. Unless there's a plan for each of us already set before we are born, how could Michael be certain that he would be motherless soon? The answer is there is a plan, a blueprint for each one of us. Our life is designed before we begin, and we are part of that effort. So as our life progresses, the spirit realm watches over us and responds to our heartfelt prayers and pleas. Michael was worried about his life without a mother, but his fears was answered that all would be fine. He was even given the detail that he would be around his mother's friend in later life. How little do we realize that the path of our life is less free will and choices made than we could consider possible. Next, Michael describes in exact detail what occurred when Nicola was in the hospital. I'll use her words again. Michael said he kept begging for me to be his mother. He wants me to go down the hallway from the birthing suite to the waiting lounge to make a phone call from a payphone. True, there was no cell signal in the hospital, and that while I was there, I was very cold, so I put on a sweater that someone else left on the waiting room chairs. By this point, the hairs on my back of my neck were standing up. I hate to admit this, but I did find a nice warm cardigan in the waiting room, and I put it on because I was so cold. I had never done anything like that before, but it was a small hospital, and there were literally no other people in the labor ward. And I waited to see if anyone would come to claim the sweater, and no one did. I was so cold. I put it on and ended up wearing it home. Shame on me. I know. I still feel guilty about that. I felt so guilty that I never wore it again, especially because it reminds me of my friend who ended up passing away. Regardless, I have to mention it because I've never told anyone about taking someone else's sweater, and it's a huge part of the story. So then she said, Michael concluded by saying that he watched me make the phone call and put on the other person's sweater, and that the last thing he remembers, he was born about 30 minutes after I went to the lounge and made that phone call. So what's going on here? Nicola was completely alone in the hospital's labor waiting room. No one else was there to see her take the sweater to use for a moment of comfort. Also, Nicola sounds like a very good witness. She's one of those good people. I mean, she's the one who said she still felt guilty about taking a sweater that probably someone just left and never cared about. So then Nicola talks to Michael alone afterwards. She said, later, I privately said to Michael, yes, I was at your birth. How did you know all that stuff? His grandparents weren't at the birth, and there's literally no way he would have known any of that. How can he make it up? He said that it's easy. He just had to think back to his earliest memories. He asked me why I don't remember being born too, and he said, it's okay. My life did turn out okay, so don't worry about not being my mom. Wow, she said. Michael was given the gift of accessing his first physical memories. The spirit world must have thought that Michael required the comfort to reach back and realize that he is loved by the invisible universe around him, and that people on earth would be present to assist his growth in the coming trials. So, I also like to point out is that what Spiritism tells us and how we are conceived is that there's an immortal spirit, right? And your spirit, you're like an adult size. And Andre Lewis has written about this, is that when you go and the sperm comes and fertilizes the egg, that's the moment when that soul starts kind of like a mollusk, right? Into that shell, it wraps itself around the mother, and then it shrinks until it gets into that fertilized egg. So let's go on here. So then, so Michael, let me go back, was given the gift of his physical memories, right? And to know that he needed that help. So Nicola then closed her account by attempting to make sense of the entire episode. This is what she says. I write this in all sincerity as my evidence that there must be some kind of heaven up there. If he could have memories of watching his birth and waiting to be born, I considered the idea that his mom speaks to him from the afterlife. And maybe she told him herself. But how would she even know this information? So, yes, Nicola, you are correct. There is a heaven up there. Heaven is why we are here. To achieve the required spirituality, the necessary amount of love, charity, fraternity, the constant adherence to justice and honesty, we must travel through multiple lives. Now, let's go back again, how Michael entered the womb, right? So, at conception, he became in that embryo. So his spirit was connected to that egg all the way through of the gestating process. Now, what also Spiritism tells us is that when a baby's in the womb, they go through. Now, Michael doesn't remember this, but they go through and they remember all their previous lives. I don't know if all of them, but probably all of the pertinent previous lives. So then they can make the commitment to do better and follow their blueprint, follow their project to do better in this life, because they don't want to do the same wrongs they did in previous lives. It's interesting too when he said that, because my earliest memory, which I'd never told anybody, and wasn't one of these false memories put into by your parents, is I remember looking through the bars of the crib and thinking, "Ah, here I am." I don't know why I remember that. There's nothing. I never remember anything else as a little baby, but I just remember thinking, "Oh, I'm here. Here I am." Who knows? And I have no idea what age it was. I remember looking through the bars. I was in the crib. Weird, right? So the other thing that's interesting that one should know about Michael is, if you didn't even remember that, but for some reason, the spirit world let him remember so let him remember being around Nicola. So when he was in the womb and his spirit was in the womb, he still had the ability to leave that womb and roam around a bit because the baby's in there. Just like when we sleep, our spirit can roam. Now, we are connected. Let me go through this. I just want to, because this is the other interesting things about near-death experience, and that again corresponds with Spiritism. So, wrong one. There. So we are composed of the spirit, which is up here in Portuguese, and what I'm showing for people, I'm showing the slide of the spirit, the perispirit, and the body, corpo in Portuguese. So the spirit is connected through the perispirit, then the perispirit covers the body like an invisible diving suit, and it has tangles into every cell in your body. Your perispirit is that's why when a person is dead, you see a dead body, it just appears different when their soul has left the body. It appears different. It's not that spark. Now, when you are asleep, or like Michael in the womb, and your spirit roams, there's always like a silvery cord attached. Of course, that cord could go out 1,billion miles, 1,trillion miles to the end of the galaxy. It's a logical thing. And again, I could go on forever here. And it's hard to explain in such words. That's why you should explore Spiritism to really understand how all these things work. But it will always be a silvery cord. And you'll see people talk about this in near-death experiences. I said, yeah, look behind me. And there was this, I was attached to my body by a thin silvery cord that seemed to go everywhere. In fact, I remember seeing in this movie by Shirley MacLaine, of course, before I discovered Spiritism, I thought, oh, she's crazy. Of course, now I understand that I was the one that was stupid, not her. Darn. And she, in one of these movies, said, she had this out-of-body experience. And as she went up into the air, she saw she was still attached to her body by a long silvery cord. And this is where I thought, oh, well, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. I don't, right? So this is why it's so interesting. These things you'll find out. Now, if there's a spirit errant on earth that's not attached to a body, you won't see that. And when people have NDEs and they talk to other spirits, they won't see the cords, only if they look back and see it on themselves. Not everybody sees it. Some people do, some people don't. So the interesting thing then, so what can we take away from this? Well, first, Michael's mother is probably in somewhere in heaven watching the progress of her son and soothing his fears when he sleeps. The spirit world is very cognizant and very feeling and loving for any child right now. Even though we are like an adult spirit and we go back, our brains can only hold so much. And that's why even here as an adult, we're only so smart and we're throttled compared to our spirit brains. But they probably are watching over Michael very carefully. There's something special going on, because why else in later in his life, why else would he remember these early memories? It'd be very interesting if we ever could find out what happens to him later. There's something, nothing the spirit world does is it all has a plan with it. Every little thing, maybe not every little thing, but I'd say most things that happen to you, and you think, why did that happen to me? And then maybe a year or 5 or 10 years later, you go, oh, you figure it out. And this is where Spiritism sets us up and helps us. Spiritism tells us that we arrive on earth with a detailed set of goals, right? These are things that this is part of our trials and tribulations. This is the vicissitudes that we have to live through. And what we should do, and I talk about this in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, because really is one of the things that's very important for us is to know how to take care of what we're learning. The spirit world doesn't give us trials and tribulations just so they can say, oh, look at this guy go through hoops. Boy, his life must be miserable. No, they never do that. Everything is part of an edifying reason, right? A teacher in school doesn't teach you something just to say, oh, let's teach them some garbage just for fun and give them a test of torture. No, even though some children think that, that's hopefully not ever true. They teach you something because even though you may not use it this week, next week, or next year, years in the future, this may be important for you. The same thing with the spirit world. We are being taught when we go through real suffering and maybe emotional pain or even sometimes physical pain. The spirit world says pain is the great teacher, unfortunately. And that's not because they want it to be. That's because for those that we have to go through pain in order to learn some type of lesson, like I had to lose money 2 times so I could learn the relative importance or not importance and what it felt like to have my money taken from me, which I know I had now done in the past to other people. Since I didn't learn that the easy way and was honorable and upright and upfront with people, that was taught to me the hard way. So I only had to go through pain because I was a slow and stubborn learner. Again, that's why Jesus says to come to him with like a child, right? Open it up and learn. Don't say, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. No, yes, you do. You need to learn to be humble. You need to really watch your pride and your selfishness. And I know this is, me saying this is so easy. Doing it is extremely difficult. And I understand that. It takes a lot. That's why How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism will go through, and it will take you 24 different steps, and each one builds upon the other, so you can learn how you should reshape your character, your personality, what the steps you need to go through, so how you can be ready for us to ascend when you're in heaven. Now, to motivate you to do this, this is why I talk about near-death experiences, to show people what can happen, right? And so to motivate you I think is the best way is to read about Spiritism, read what is the organization. Now, there are many people out there that say, we need to love and be charitable and fraternal, and that is all true. But my approach in a lot of my books is to tell you that this is what the spirit world is. This is what you can expect from it. Now, I lay this on the table. This is how it is. You can either say, yes, this is something I want to work for, right? I want to live in this wonderful world. I want to be surrounded, because of the law of affinity, by people like me, who love me. I want to keep being intellectually challenged. I want to be with my best friends and my family in life after life. I want to rise from one level of heaven to the next, always accumulating more power. And with more power is more responsibility. All of these things, I explain them in my book, Heaven and Below. I then explain what we are as a spirit, spirits in the universe. What is a spirit? What are we, right? We are immortal. And by the way, all spirits are created equal. We can all be equally intelligent. We can all be equally good as an artist, musician, whatever we want to concentrate on. We're not limited by the DNA that we had agreed before when we came into what we are able as far as our intelligence, right? Our body, right? Because we make our own body. When we're in the spirit universe, what we think is what we are. That's why when people die, and if they die when they're very young or they die when they're very old, everyone comes together into whatever you think you are, 20s, 30s, or 40s. Usually it's really around there somewhere that most people decide to look like. And we've actually seen that. One person that I talked about in NDA actually saw a person unconsciously transformed before her eyes. She was talking and her hair got redder and her skin got better. And she was starting to look like how she thought she looked. She didn't consciously do that, but she was. Now, the third book of the series is How We Are Guided by Spirits and what is actually awaiting for us right now. We are a planet of atonement, meaning this is where karma works, right? This is where we all are. We're relatively immature spirits, but we won't always be. We will graduate from this planet someday if we start learning. That's why the information's out for you, right? Learn, study. If you don't like, it all depends how you want to study and learn. But I recommend that there's two things you have to do, really. And people ask me this, well, why can't I just be loving and kind to everybody? Yes, it certainly helps, right? Being loving, kind, fraternal, selfless, right? And help in the service to other people. But you also really need to study, because if you're loving and kind, you really haven't modified your behavior to the extent I think you need to. And if you learn and study about Spiritism, you will start not only thinking, oh, I got to watch my mouth and love people. You will start altering your thoughts, and more importantly, you'll begin to understand people. You'll understand why people are in the state they are, and it will make forgiveness and loving and helping other people much more effective. And that's why I think it will help you. So if you are interested in learning about Spiritism, you can go to the site spiritismstudy.org. You can scroll down. You can get an appointment with me or other people who would love to talk to you. If for me, let's say you set an appointment at the time that you want to set, I'll have that everything blocked where I have open spots, and I'll send you an email and say, yeah, we can talk by Skype or WhatsApp. Everybody uses one or the other practically, and we can talk, maybe not face to face, but picture to picture, and we'll do whatever you want. There's nothing you have to go through, nothing you have to pay, of course not. And of course, with Spiritism, go to my site, nwspiritism.com. You can read the articles. I've told you before, my Spiritism 101, the third revelation, is on a PDF on my Facebook site, Spiritism, the Spirit World Around Us. I will upload this video to BitChute and YouTube. So again, if you want to look at this video, see other videos, please subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be notified when these other videos. Please share the videos to other Facebook groups, share the videos, share the YouTube BitChute videos to other people. Because I think if the more that people understand Spiritism, the more you'll understand your life, the less stress you will have. It certainly has helped me. When bad things happen or I get frustrated, I just think, oh yeah, I got to learn this. This is something that I must have needed, right? You don't let the ups and downs affect you, because you're at that 10,000 foot level and you're looking at your life as this, this 60, 80 years or however you're going to live in this physical body is nothing compared to being an immortal, right? Divide eternity into 80 years and you get a very small number, really zero, but whatever. So this is just one step we're going through. And if you can make the commitment to start improving in this life, because reincarnation after reincarnation isn't just like a steady slope up, right? It's more like people park, what the Spiritism call it, you just park at life after life. You just make the same mistakes over and over again. I know I have. And then, but all of a sudden, the light turns on. Just like a student, like you'll wait for your kid. Maybe it'll take them till 10th grade. They go, oh, maybe I have to study. Same thing happens to us. Well, all of a sudden the light will go on like, oh, maybe I should take this seriously and improve myself. Then your spiritual sanity will go like a hockey stick. So anyway, I want to say, everyone, bless you for coming tonight. Please tell your friends and read about Spiritism, study about Spiritism. Believe me, everything will be much easier in your life. The more you do, you'll take things much more calm. You'll be healthier. Anyway, good night and God bless to everybody. Good night.